In this video, I'll show you how to sew a t-shirt without an overlocker. I'll use a sewing pattern, which can be downloaded from the site, the link is below. The pattern is available for sizes XS to L in heights 154 to 184. This pattern itself is quite simple and suitable for beginners. However, I've got piles of questions in direct messages on how to sew this t-shirt without an overlocker. To sew this t-shirt, choose knit fabrics. Jersey knit is your best choice. Pre-treat the fabric before cutting. Press with steam, following the selvage direction. Make sure you don't press too hard, since you can stretch out or distort the fabric. Press gently, following the selvage direction. Steam press the fabric with the wrong side facing up. Continue pressing the entire piece of fabric. Pre-treating helps to prevent shrinking during sewing, washing, and wear. To print the pattern, use a printer and then glue the sheets together. Also, you can use a large format plotter. On the pattern, you'll find information about the total ease allowances, pattern piece name, grain line, fold, as well as number of pieces to be cut. The instructions to the pattern include the cutting layout. This jersey knit has a regular width, so it requires a different layout. First, lay bigger pieces that are meant to be cut on fold, they are the front and back pieces. I adjust the fold of the fabric to be as wide as the back piece. Note that all pattern pieces include seam allowances, so don't leave extra space. Secure the pattern on the fabric with pattern weights or pins, whatever you prefer. Make sure you follow the grain line direction indicated with a long arrow on the pattern. It should be parallel to the selvage. Transfer the notches from the pattern to the fabric pieces. It is convenient to use scissors and make small cuts of about 2 to 3 millimeters within the seam allowances. We've cut one back piece on fold. Now cut one front piece, also on fold. I adjust the fold of the fabric to be as wide as the front piece. Now we are going to cut 2 sleeve pieces. Fold the fabric in such a way as to place the entire sleeve pattern piece. We're going to finish the neckline with a neckband. We only need 1 neckband piece. Make the notches according to the pattern. Using tailor's chalk, mark the wrong side of each piece to avoid mixing up the pieces. These are the pieces that we've cut. 1 front piece on the right and 1 back piece on the left. We also have sleeves, 2 pieces. To avoid mixing the right and left sleeve pieces, pay attention to the notches at the sleeve cap and armscye. We also have a neckband piece to finish the neckline of the t-shirt. We need lightweight knit interfacing. Cut a 1 cm wide strip along the selvage. We'll use this strip to interface the shoulder edges on the back piece. Place the fusible side of interfacing onto the wrong side of the shoulder seam allowance, and press. Interface the seam allowances only on the back piece. Now we can join the front and back pieces at the shoulder edges. Place the pieces right sides together, aligning the shoulder edges. Pin and hand baste if necessary. We recommend using specialty needles when working with knit fabrics. You can use stretch, super stretch, jersey, or similar. To hem the sleeves and bottom of the t-shirt, we'll use a twin needle. Take a narrow or wide twin needle, as you like. The knit fabric is very stretchy, so we can't use a straight stitch. A straight stitching seam can easily break when stretched. We recommend using a 4-thread overlocker for construction and finishing raw edges. If you don't have an overlocker, you can use a zigzag stitch on a regular sewing machine. Use a 2 mm stitch length and a 1 mm stitch width. The seam is rather strong and looks neat from both sides. Machine stitch the shoulder seams, backstitching at the beginning and end. Remember to press each seam after stitching. This ensures a very neat look of the finished garment. First press the seams flat, and then press the seam allowances open, as shown in the video. Next, press the seam allowances toward the back piece. Such steps help to get the best result of seam pressing. To get neat seam allowances on the wrong side of the t-shirt, I will show you the following technique. Trim off the back piece seam allowance down to 3 to 4 mm. Hand baste the front piece seam allowance to prevent it from shifting. Stitch another row of zigzag stitching following the basting stitches, as shown in the video. The distance between the two seams may be of your choice, for example 5 mm. Trim off the excess seam allowance, leaving about 1 mm from the seam. The seam finished in such a way looks neat on both sides. It is quite stretchy as well. Press the seam. Make sure you don't stretch the neckline and arm side edges. Next, we are going to finish the neckline with a neckband. Fold the neckband in half to place the short edges right sides together. Pin or hand baste in place. Stitch on the sewing machine using a narrow zigzag stitch. Press the seam flat. Press the seam allowances open. Trim the seam allowances down to 3 to 4 mm. Fold the neckband in half lengthwise wrong sides together, as shown in the video. Make sure you don't stretch the neckband, press carefully. For convenience, clip at the center front and center back. Match the neckband seam with the shoulder seam, for example, the left one. Continue pinning the pieces together, matching the notches. The neckband is a bit shorter than the neckline edge, and it is meant so. Align the edges, stretching the neckband a little, and pin the pieces together. This helps the neckband lie flat in the finished garment. My recommendation is to hand baste the neckband to the neckline edge first, to avoid wrinkles and puckering when stitching. Use a zigzag stitch to stitch the neckband to the neckline. Press the seam carefully, ensuring the iron goes over the seam allowance only, and try not to stretch the neckline. Trim off the lower seam allowances that will be hidden under the upper seam allowance, as we did before at the shoulder seams. Press the seam allowances toward the main garment. Be careful when you work with the lightweight knit fabric because hard pressing can ruin the garment. This is how the finished neckline should look. Finishing the neckline at this step is more convenient because the side seams haven't been stitched yet. Next, we'll finish the back neckline with the twill tape. You can use the twill tape that matches the main fabric and color, or use any other tape as you prefer. I use the white twill tape. Pin the tape to the back neckline seam allowances from one shoulder to the other shoulder, as shown in the video. Fold the short edge of the tape to the wrong side. Align the edge of the tape with the neckline seam. Machine stitch the tape to the back neckline seam allowances. Use a zigzag stitch. This is what it should look like. Fold the free long edge of the twill tape toward the garment and pin to the back neckline, as shown in the video. Also, turn the front neckline seam allowances toward the garment and hand baste in place. This is how it should look. Machine stitch at 1 mm from the edge of the seam allowances and twill tape. This way we secure the seam allowances to the front and the twill tape to the back. We stitch in a circle and use a zigzag stitch. Press the finished neckline with steam, shrinking out the ease on the neckband. Now trim off the excess seam allowances on the front piece. The neckline is ready. Give it a final press. Next, let's join the side seams. Place the front and back pieces right sides together, align the side edges, and pin. Match the notches. Stitch on the sewing machine at 1 cm from the edge, use a zigzag stitch. Press the seams flat, but be careful not to stretch them out. We'll finish the side seams in the same way as we finished the shoulder seams. Trim off the back piece seam allowance. Fold each sleeve piece in half, right sides together, pin and machine stitch. The finishing technique is the same as we used for finishing the shoulder and side seams. Press the seam allowances to the back of the sleeve. The sleeve hem allowance is 2 cm wide. I use a template which is 4 cm wide and mark a line with a tailor's chalk. The marked line will be used as a guide to pin, press and hand baste the sleeve hem. Hand baste the sleeve hem at 1 mm from the raw edge, as shown in the video. Use a twin needle and 2 spools to thread it. Set a straight stitch on the sewing machine. Machine stitch, ensuring the basting stitches run between the 2 rows of stitching, closer to the left needle. The left needle should catch the very edge of the hem allowance. Press the seam. This is what it should look like. The seam is quite stretchy. Finish the bottom edge of the t-shirt. I use a 6 cm template since the garment hem allowance is 3 cm wide. Mark a line that will be used as a guide. Hand baste the hem in place at 1 mm from the raw edge. Stitch on the sewing machine, as shown in the video. Now let's set in the sleeves. Make sure you don't mix up the right and left sleeves. Match the notches at the sleeve cap and armscye. First pin at the notches, and then pin in between them. Hand baste the sleeve to facilitate stitching. Follow the same steps to stitch the sleeves in place, as you did to stitch the shoulder and side seams. Use a narrow zigzag stitch and a 1 cm seam allowance. Press the seam flat, trim off the front and back seam allowances, and fold the sleeve seam allowance toward the garment, as shown in the video. Sew another row of stitching at about 5 mm from the previous one. Press the seam, trim the seam allowance down carefully, close to the stitching. Give the garment a final press. Your t-shirt is ready. I think sewing t-shirts is great. You can choose any unique color, your size, and fit. To find such a t-shirt in a shop can be problematic sometimes. Also, t-shirts from the shop tend to shrink and pill. They often have twisted side seams and wear out quickly. So, choose high-quality fabrics and sew with pleasure. Use hashtag #VickySewsAlia to browse photos on Instagram, get new ideas and see how this t-shirt fits different people. If you like this video, please like and subscribe to this channel. See you in the next video.